So I have to behave myself, otherwise I'm going to have an empty room. My role is very simple. Today is about ETC, and like I said earlier on, I've been excited about the level of engagement, the level of participation, and I'm hopeful more than ever that we are going to see a lot of ETCs emerging from this room, from Malawi. So we just need to keep the faith and continue to engage as necessary. My role is very simple. It's to tell you who Afreximbank is and why we are doing this. Of course, I'm aware that quite a number of you have heard about Afreximbank, but not all of you would say that they really know who the bank is. So I just want to introduce you to the bank, provide some historical context, give you some highlights of some, not exhaustive, but select products and services which the bank uses to assist our counterparties, and then tell you how you can make applications to the bank. My name is Humphrey Nwugo. Like I say, I manage the bank's regional office for Southern Africa, and I am next door in Harare, Zimbabwe. So, if just some, like I said, I will not spend a lot of time, but just to give you some level of historical context. The bank was created in the early 90s, but the journey to create an Afreximbank started in the 80s. During what we call the Latin America debt crisis, I think some of us would have been aware. At the time, it was termed the MBA, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina debt crisis, caused by heavy borrowings, debt overhang by those Latin American countries, which led to the risking and exiting of international lenders from frontier markets. At the time, Africa was bereft of any opportunity to finance trade, defined as import and export cross-border type. Then African Development Bank decided that there was a need to set up a supranational Africa resident multilateral development finance institution to focus on trade, an institution that will not run away at the slightest challenge or slightest problem. And they commissioned a feasibility study, took it to the OAU at the time, now African Union, to sanction it as a multilateral institution. And then it was approved, and funding was made available. In 1993, the bank was set up to promote trade intra-African and between Africa and the rest of the world. The bank is headquartered in Cairo, as I believe most of you would be aware. And this slide just tells you some evolution of the history of the bank, including strategic plans which we use to intervene on the continent. So this is just telling you, like I said, why we are set up. So we are, in effect, a child of necessity, born out of crisis. And we continue to support Africa in times of crisis. Some of you may be aware of the things we've done during the counter-cyclical problems of 2014-16, when there was a commodity price crash. In 2019-2020, during the pandemic, and the way we supported Africa in the procurement of vaccines on a whole of Africa basis, instead of each country negotiating. And that really ties in nicely to the issue of ETC. It is a concept that enables aggregation of sorts, Because when you are large, you are then able to negotiate favorable terms. That was what we did with the procurement of vaccines for African countries. The bank is governed by what we call the charter signed by all member countries, today 52 on the continent. And the way we are set up, due to the certain benefits that we have, the founding fathers enshrined in the charter that we are not allowed to do business in a non-member country. Meaning, for the bank to do business in any country in Africa, that country would deliberately sign up to the charter. At the moment, 52 countries have signed, 2 haven't, and the 2 are Somalia and Libya. So we are effectively operating in all the countries on the continent, governed by the bank charter. The establishment agreement, which established the bank in 1993, was signed in Abidjan, and the bank has then emerged as the key pillar for promoting intra-African trade and value-added exports. Some of you that have seen our mission would note that though we are a DFI, we were set up to operate along commercial lines. And again, that was a deliberate decision when the founding fathers wanted to make us much more disciplined in the way we approach our business. They didn't want us to just be dishing out funding to any country or any counterparty just because we need to do that. But to be disciplined in the way we provide financing in a manner that ensures that the funding would be repaid and that we remain profitable. Perhaps the only DFI that is profitable. So that's what the mission says: vision to be the trade finance bank, mission to operate, to stimulate expansion of African trade and operate as a first-class profit-oriented institution, like I said, but must be socially responsible and a center of excellence for African trade. Regional offices in 6 major regions of the continent. Southern Africa is being run out of Harare, Zimbabwe, and that is where I sit, covering 13 countries in Southern Africa. We have an East African office sitting in Kampala, Uganda. We have an office, a regional office in Francophone West Africa for the Francophone countries in Western Africa. We have an office in Central Africa for the countries there, covering those countries. Anglophone West Africa in Abuja, Nigeria. North Africa, that's where the head office is. From there, we are managing the countries in the northern part of the continent. We do not, like other DFIs, operate in-country offices, but we have regional offices with country managers sitting in those regions. Shareholding structure, essentially 3 classes: Class A, B, and C. A are African governments and regional financial institutions and economic organizations. Class B are non-African, African private sector investors, my apologies, and C are non-African investors. So you would see that it is basically a PPP model. And we pride ourselves as the first truly successful public-private partnership on the continent. You would see a Class D there, which was created in 2017, essentially open to any investor, but it's held by way of depository receipts in Mauritius by State Bank of Mauritius. So that is a tradable class of shares, limited in its number. Strategic plans, we have a new one that started at the beginning of this year. It's going to run up to 2026, effectively consolidating the gains of the previous strategic plan, using intra-African trade and the support for African Continental Free Trade Area as a key pillar, as an arrowhead. Everything we are doing, including this ETC, is geared towards facilitating the promotion and improvement of Africa's share of global trade. I think we may have picked up statistics that suggest that Africa's share of total trade today is anywhere between 15 and 18%. When you compare that with the Americas, it goes up to 60, in Europe about 50. So if you are talking about development, and we cannot trade amongst ourselves, clearly we still have a very long way to go. So in 2015, the bank set up the Intra-African Trade Initiative for the first time since its creation in 1993. Prior to that, we are not paying particular attention to promoting intra-African trade. And as a trade finance bank for Africa, that actually should be our mandate. So the bank decided to have a department focusing on promoting intra-African trade, split into two. One is trade facilitation, that's where I get more seats. The other one is trade financing, the intra-African trade financing. Because we recognize that we can provide the money, but like she was saying earlier on, the lady that does wine, if goods cannot find themselves to the across border, then we would not have done anything. So the facilitation unit of Intra-African Trade Department was tasked with identifying bottlenecks, identifying challenges, tariff and non-tariff barriers to trade, and proposing solutions. We know that part of the problems we have militating against intra-African trade is the payment system. Today, if you want to export rice to Zimbabwe, chances are that the buyer would ask for an LC in US dollars, in third-party currency, which has to go to New York to clear. In some countries on the continent, for you to even transfer money to another bank within the same geography, it has to clear in New York. So the bank decided to set up what we call Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, which enables the continent to trade in own currency as part of the facilitation of intra-African trade. Another problem that we identified as part of this is the lack of information. I've heard about Malawi rice. It's possible that people in Zambia don't even know that they can buy rice from Malawi. Lack of information. How can we improve trade if people are not aware of what they can buy from their neighbors? So we have set up quite a number of initiatives. One is what you call the Africa Trade Report, which basically just talks about trading in Africa, put down in writing, so people can pick up the document and understand what people really trade in, what people import and export in different countries. The other is the Intra-African Trade Fair. I think some of us are aware. It's an activity to bridge the information gap, encouraging African countries to attend the trade fair to showcase what it is that they have comparative advantage in, and enable others who may be needing that same product, commodity, whatever it is, to understand that they can actually buy this from those countries. It's been very successful. I think, if I recall, the last one we did in Durban last year, there were about 30,000 visitors. 11,000 people participated physically. We are issued real badges. So it's something that's becoming very popular, and Malawi was represented by EDF, and obviously quite a number of you as well. So that is another way that we are doing that. And quite a number of other initiatives. One is what we call the KYC. Before you can do business with your neighbors, you need to know who they are. As a result, the bank set up what we call MANSA, which is a digital platform, KYC platform, to talk about parties, essentially SMEs, in different countries. So if you want to do business with a party in in Malawi. Just go to the Mansa platform, you go to type in the name, and then it tells you who the people are, and then you can decide whether to do business with them or not. Then we have what they call trade information portal. Again, just like the trade report, putting it now in a digital form. We have trade regulatory portal, because once you've decided to do business with the other country, you need to know what the regulations are. If you want to import from Malawi, what do you need to do? What sort of licenses would you require? And quite a number of other things that we have, launched to assist with promoting traffic trade. Then the second key pillar is industrialization and export development. Again, if you want to trade with ourselves, it cannot be in the same raw material that we trade with the rest of the world. We need to add value to the product that we trade. We cannot be exporting raw commodities to our neighbors. So through the industrialization and export development, we try to value add. We try to export manufactured products, and we do this through the instrumentality of industrial parks. I think we are supporting 2 now in Malawi, 1 in Blantyre, another in Lilongwe, and special economic zones, where we put infrastructure within a certain geography to reduce costs and concentrate skills as well, therefore enable production. The other 2 are not essentially trade finance leadership. That's what we do, and obviously we need to be financially sound. So let me try and move a bit faster. We have 3 broad instruments of intervention. Credit, so we provide loans, simply put. Trade and project finance. The project financing has to be trade-enabling project finance. Then risk-bearing instruments, insurance, I'll just talk about it, and guarantees. And we also have trade information, like I was saying, as well as advisory services to enable you package your transactions in a bankable format. Specific instruments, again, loans, like I said, trade finance, pre-exports, post-shipment, structured trade finance, structure it in a manner that is self-liquidating. Like we say internally, we follow the money. So unlike a typical commercial bank, we would not ask you to give us your house, your grandfather's house, your grandmother's house, etc., etc. We follow the money. So we just look at the entire chain to say where are the risk points, how are we mitigated in those risk points. So it's absolutely possible, and we do it a lot, that we provide you $100 million without having to ask you for your house, as long as the product that you are trading has allocated risk to parties best able to bear them. So we provide pre-shipment, post-shipment, structured finance, including financing under collateral management. Lines of credit, again, simply put, we provide you lines of credit, which you can draw at any time. It can be revolving, it can be term loan, whatever it is. So you draw and you use to do your business. Note purchase, this is something that you use for short-term loans, where the borrower just effectively issues notes and says, I owe you, and the bank can avalize it, and therefore transfer the payment risk to ourselves or replace your risk with that of the bank. So it's a note purchase program. We do that. Direct financing, but here you just have to note that for you to qualify to benefit from direct financing from ourselves, you must have historically at least $2 million of assets and $10 million of turnover or revenues. We are not intending to exclude anyone. So below that threshold, because we are a wholesale bank, beyond that threshold, or below that threshold, we support them through financial intermediaries. So we say to a bank here, anyone, name it, FDH, MBS, we provide them a line of credit for on-lending to small-scale borrowers, those who will need $500,000, $200,000, because we will not be able to attend to them ourselves. But we provide them a 2-step loan, first to the bank, and then we make sure that the banks on-lend to those parties. I think that's what we've also done with EDF, provided them financing for small-scale exporters. So we have the future flow, against non-physical assets, maybe credit card, remittances, etc., etc. So that is available. Invoice discounting, again, for those who are into supply chain finance. If your invoices are accepted, you can bring them to us. We have factoring facilities, and because factoring is really, they are usually very small by their very nature. What we did was to set up a bucket of $100 million to support factoring, and we provide $2 million to factors in different countries to factor, invoices in those countries. So this does not apply to our regular loans. We just created that outside of our balance sheet. Then we have the asset-backed financing, where you provide your loans against assets and all that. Project financing, like I said, it has to be trade-enabling project finance. This applies essentially to banks and maybe to corporates. It's a confirmation of LCs, with the enhanced risk perception of Africa. Sometimes our LCs are not accepted offshore. So you need an investment grade rated institution like Afreximbank to add confirmations to your LCs, which is then accepted by the beneficiary or the beneficiary's banks. This can also come by way of reimbursement undertakings, avalization of promissory notes, and like I said earlier on, the guarantees, or even trade confirmation. Sometimes your LCs are confirmed, but the beneficiary is saying, I really don't know this bank that has confirmed your LCs. They need a guarantee, which we can provide. So, this again are specific instruments. LCs and LC refinancing, like I said, we can issue LCs, we can refinance LCs on your behalf, i.e., on maturity. If you do not have funding, we can pay the beneficiary on your behalf and book a loan in your favor. Intra-African exports, again, to facilitate and support exports within the continent, we created a specific product targeted at that so that we can lower some of the stringent measures that we use for other types of facility. Packing credit enables you to process, manufacture and pack your goods either for exports or imports. This is a facility that will do. I think this one will come very handy for ETCs to enable you to acquire those goods, pack them, and then we can provide financing for that. Intra-African trade services support is designed to reduce risk and uncertainties associated with intra-African commercial transactions. Supply chain guarantees, like I said, again, for people who are supplying you, we can provide them guarantees that assure for payment assurance in order to enable them to continue to supply. If you want to bid for contracts, you can provide some sort of contract-related guarantees, bid bonds, performance bonds, advance payment guarantees, and all that. So these are all things that we can provide. Export contract availability guarantees. Sometimes you want to expand your capacity, but you are not really sure that you continue to receive orders on the supply side. We can provide you guarantees to assure you that as long as you have the products, you have a market. This has also been very attractive. Collaborative transit guarantee, I think Gemma was talking about it. If you're importing from South Africa by road, we issue you one bond, transit bond. So if you're going through 3 different custom points, you don't have to be paying bond at each point. You just provide that one bond. It enables free flow of goods and services as well. Country risk guarantees and investment guarantees. We've used this to support quite a number of projects. I'm sure some of you know about the Beit Bridge. There were some foreign investors that wanted to invest in Beit Bridge. That's the border between Zimbabwe, one of the busiest borders on the continent, and South Africa. But they were concerned about the political events, country risk events in Zimbabwe. We had to provide them a country risk guarantee. So in effect, replacing the country risk with that of our Afreximbank. So if there are certain country events that prevent you from doing your business, we can provide that. So we want the investor to focus essentially on commercial risks. Facilitating, obviously, the storage infrastructure, tank farms, warehouses, etc., anything that is required to store your goods. So these three were just brought out just for emphasis. That's why they were, separated. Franchise financing, especially in the FMCG sector, we have quite a number of successful franchises or companies that are hoping to expand, but perhaps do not have the capital. So through our franchise financing facility, we support the expansion, we support the franchisees through financing, and therefore enable the business to grow. So that is the emphasis, very important, and it's something that the bank has launched. Toll manufacturing, sometimes we have the large manufacturers like Nestle, I think it's called Lever Brothers and others, seeking to outsource the manufacturing facilities to certain companies. We provide funding for that. We provide funding since you have a guaranteed offtake. Contract agriculture, we are all familiar with it, tobacco, cotton, etc. Sometimes the contractor, the farming itself, we can provide funding to enable that to take place. So just to highlight two key products, or maybe call it subsidiaries of the institution that were set up specifically to catalyze export businesses. One is Fund for Export Development in Africa, FEDA. It's a subsidiary of the bank sitting in Rwanda, Kigali, and invests equity in essentially export-oriented businesses. So the objective is to provide development equity into companies that are involved in intra-African trade and exports of manufacturing in Africa. So they take minority stake, because most times before you can leverage, you need to have your equity. But if you have a good business plan and you do not have equity, you can come, this bank can assist you with, this subsidiary of the bank can assist you with equity funds, because as an institution, we only provide loans and guarantees, like I said earlier. But they can provide you with equity funds, which then enables you to leverage. The intention is not to stay forever, is to enable the business to mature, and then they will exit. And why? Why this? It's because of the funding gap that exists. I think the slide on the right will tell you where we sit as a continent. You see the yellow there on the bar. That shows, anytime you see it big, it means that that is raw material. In cocoa, timber, etc. And then our share of the processed is very, very low. So this equity fund is supposed to help change that particular structure. So these are the sectors where the Fund for Export Development can invest in: agribusiness, manufacturing, FMCG, all of them. As long as they are support value-added exports as well as intra-African trade. Investment criteria for SMEs, I think we've heard a lot about it. Emerging corporates, including mature businesses that want to expand. Investment focus is about growth, buyout, MES, and debt capital, but equity for debt. Instruments only purely equity or quasi-equity. They do not do loans. Like I said, the bank does that. So ownership, they don't like to take majority stake in businesses. since their role is really to catalyze, but when the circumstances warrant that, they can. At the moment, because of their size, the balance sheet is 100 million. The intention is to leverage that up to $1 billion. Their investment ranges between 5 million and 20 million. Exits strictly by sale of shares, via IPOs, trade sales, buyouts, etc., etc. As I said, the intention is not to stay in the business. So this is another subsidiary of the bank, which is insurance in nature, that is called Afreximbank. This one is registered in Mauritius and is insurance management, they provide insurance management services. It's a focal point for all your insurance needs, especially if the bank is providing the financing. We prefer to use our insurance arm to do the business, because that way all the risks that we identify would be covered. So it goes, their range includes property, all the risks associated with property, investment, or construction. It covers energy and power, cargo risks, construction, all risk. Eligibility, provided your business is supporting trade and trade-related investments, you can access this financing. Then how can you reach out to the bank? What's the credit process? We have basically 3 stages. The first one is the pre-assessment, where we do some KYC on you, just agree the term sheet, basically, and then we get a pre-assessment committee approval, which is effectively an investment committee approval. After that, we go to the full credit committee. For complex transactions, we need to do technical due diligence, power transactions, for instance, because we do not have experience in that area. We get independent parties to advise us, mining, and all that. So once the DD is done and it's satisfactory, we go to the final credit committee, and we can also go to the board, depending on the amounts. Amounts above $50 million can go to the board. Our single obligor is up to $700 million, which we can lend to a single counterparty. Then once the transaction is fully approved, we just need to do legal documentation, and then we disburse. So if you want to apply, all you need to do is to identify someone in the bank. It doesn't necessarily have to be me if you are in Malawi. But if you send it to me, I'll direct it appropriately. But anyone in the bank, once you send the application, they will send it to the right people within the bank. To identify, even on the website, actually, you can actually just send it, your request, to the generic email on the website, provide out your brief profile. For existing businesses, 3 years audited, tell us about your board and management, provide financial projections, like Emma was saying earlier, business plan and feasibilities where applicable, and any other credit information you deem necessary. And that is all you need, and then we can start the conversation. Thank you. Happy to take any questions about the bank.
Where is our technology? We'll just take the next few minutes to wrap it up on the bank's products. So he has covered the finance. I just want to highlight some of the facilitation instruments that we have. Then we'll break for lunch, and probably after lunch, we'll start with World Food Program, then we'll do breaks. Is it working? Okay. Is it coming? Okay. All right. So I will be quick. I will not focus on pretty much everything. I just want to highlight a few trade facilitation interventions to support intra-African trade under the AFCFTA, as well as to support ETCs. We know that a number of countries are participating in the AFCFTA, Malawi included, and some of you are actually going to lose tariff revenue loss short term. Some of you, as private sector, you'll need money to retool, to buy equipment, to be able to participate in the regional value chains. So where is that money going to come from? That's basically the bit that I will be talking about. The bank is actually aware of those challenges and constraints, so we're going to establish, working with the AFCFTA Secretariat, an AFCFTA adjustment fund to address all these challenges. It's a 10 billion facility over 6 to 10 years, and we have already put 1 billion as Afreximbank, and we are now requesting other financial institutions to also come to the party. Somebody was asking, does the Afreximbank only work with one? I think this is also an opportunity to invite others to come to the party. We don't only speak, we basically put our money where we feel it will actually add value. And so that's the adjustment fund that we are establishing, working with the AFCFTA Secretariat. The other initiative I want to talk about is the Africa Trade Gateway. My colleague Humphrey talked about some of the elements. There is the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System that will facilitate payments in local currencies. And as Afreximbank, we believe that Malawi should actually be able to trade with Zambia using kwacha, and you don't need the Biden dollars there. You do not need any euros. You can actually do it using your local currencies. You export, it could be whatever you export, and then you'll be paid in local currency. There's a lot of trade that will be taking place, but it's not taking place because we are waiting for the US dollar. So at some point, Egypt needed to buy tobacco from Malawi, but they didn't have Forex, and the deal just fell off. So we're actually saying Malawi should be able to trade tobacco with Egypt, and Egypt should be able to pay in Egyptian pounds, but the equivalent amount can then be converted through their central bank, and Malawi can receive your Malawi kwacha, and these are some of the things that, so you have to make that choice, whether you want the trade to actually not take place, or you can actually have the trade taking place, but you receive the local currency. Or if you want to send it elsewhere, you can also do. So we are actually looking at ways of actually making trade to happen. The other instrument that we have is the Africa Trade Exchange, which is basically a B2B platform which also has got a marketplace which helps buyers and sellers to actually engage and trade, and it's supported by AFCFTA rules of origin and other rules. So it's a very important platform. We are already using it to actually facilitate the importation of fertilizer as a result of the Ukraine crisis. That is the platform that is also being used to facilitate that trade. We also have what we call the Africa Customer Due Diligence repository. We call it MANSA. It's basically, in simple terms, it's a platform to facilitate KYC, to make it easy for everybody to be able to approach banks and get funding. So we are also requesting for those who are in the room, if you are not already on that MANSA platform, please let us know. We want you to register. Once you register on that platform, you then have an identity. It will become easier for you to do business, not only with the bank, but with the other counterparts in Africa. So for those who need to enroll onto that, you can basically approach us. We also have got trader intelligence and regulations. The trader intelligence deals with market access. My colleague talked about market access. we are going to be using artificial intelligence to basically predict supply chains and be able to identify what are some of the products that are required in the market. If you are a buyer, that trader intelligence will have a marketplace where you'll be able to actually identify probably where you can actually source your products. If you are a seller, you'll be able to go onto that platform. There's a marketplace which can actually show you as a seller where can you actually send your products. So it will help to do the matchmaking, and it is also supported by insights, some analysis. So that is another tool that we have to facilitate trade. And we'll also bring in all the trade regulations that you need. Before you send your product to Zambia, we'll tell you that if it is wine, if it is groundnuts, these are the rules that you need to comply with. You'll have that information at one go. You just click a button, boom, all the information is there. That's what trader regulations will do. And it's an ecosystem, so you can actually start from either the ATEX or the market intelligence. You probably have got a product and you are looking for a market. So it's, let's say it's your groundnuts. You want Egyptians to test the Malawian groundnuts. So you can go on ATEX or on Trader Intelligence. You can actually identify a company in Egypt that is actually interested in buying groundnuts from Malawi. And then you may be saying, okay, who is this person who speaks the language that I don't even understand? Can I even trust this person? The person could be on the Mansa platform. That's the beauty of enrolling on the Mansa platform. You can then go to Mansa to find out who is this person. If I send my groundnuts to Egypt, will they not just disappear? You go to Mansa, Mansa will assure you to say, there is Gainmo who is living in Cairo. He's a real human being, and this is his profile, so send his groundnuts. And that's basically the verification that will take place through Mansa. And then you may be wondering, so if I send my groundnuts, how do I get paid? Then it will take you to PAPS, the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. This is the payment system which will facilitate payment. But even before you get there, you may have secured an order, but you need financing to be able to basically do some probably processing, some packaging. You can actually apply online to the bank for financing. And we've got an online banking application platform that you can actually use. Everything is being done digitally online. So that's basically the trade gateway that we are creating. And it will actually help us to remove some of the barriers to trade that we face. So that's basically all these things that I've been talking about. I will leave you with the slides. I will not go in detail. I've already talked about this transit guarantee scheme. You can see all the borders that we have. Just trying to move from Cape to Cairo, look at the number of borders that we have. By the time the goods arrive to Cairo, they will be tired. And we really need to get rid of that through transit bonds. Trade enabling infrastructure, very important. I cannot emphasize enough. It's very important. We built infrastructure primarily to take our commodities to the ports and out of the country. And we need to actually start working on the infrastructure that can do intra-African trade connection. And this is another area that we are working on. We are also training people on how to export. We are building the Africa Quality Assurance Centers. These are the labs that I talked about that can help to testify that your products comply with standards. We are doing one in Nigeria, and we'll be working with other countries to actually roll out these. We also have a trade and investment promotion unit in the bank that can actually help Malawi, probably working with Malawi Investment Promotion Agency. We can facilitate investment into the key sectors in Malawi. That is another function that we have in the bank. Of course, special economic zones, we talked about this yesterday. Automotive, we are also supporting that sector. We are supporting harmonization of standards. And the trade fair that my colleague talked about. We had 7 heads of states that attended last year in Durban, and we have the 2nd edition in Cote d'Ivoire. I want to see everybody in this room in Cote d'Ivoire next year, and if I don't see you, I will not come back to Malawi. So you need to take note. Then we also we're looking at, it's an opportunity to actually generate deals. So when you are crying to say, where can I sell my groundnuts? Where can I sell my rice? Where can I sell whatever you're producing? The trade fair gives you that platform to network with other business people from other African countries and abroad. So that's basically what I wanted to share with you in terms of the other, all these other initiatives, they support what we are doing on the ETC. So there's the finance and the facilitation. And we can basically take one or two questions if they are burning questions, but these products, we can actually dialogue with you bilaterally. We're just sharing with you what we have. This is the information that we have, and we can provide more information. So I think this is now a good time for us to break for lunch, unless moderator thinks otherwise. Moderator, are we acquitted? Okay, he agrees. So let's break for lunch, and when we come back, we will basically listen to World Food Program for just about 10 minutes. They will present what they are trying to do, which will link into the mega farm. Then we break into groups and try to come up with suggestions on how, as Malawi, after all these things that we've been saying, how do we then create ETCs? There will be 4 groups, so I'll give you that information immediately after World Food Program is presented. So lunch is served, and it's 2:02, and we are coming back by the hour, exactly 3 o'clock we start. Thank you.
The sun will rise from the east and set to the west on a beautiful African day. The beauty in the river as the water flows, and I can't do nothing but swim. It's amazing how nature falls in sync. I see the reason why he said it was good. Amazing creation. As the mother and daughter fetch water from the stream, they sing beautiful songs of peace and some ululation. The men gather under shades of beautiful trees, and peaceful reasoning is all I see. Africa, oh Africa, my motherland. Africa, oh Africa, this is where I come from. Africa, oh Africa, my motherland. Africa, oh Africa, this is where I come from. Oh Africa, I call you home. Oh Africa, I love you more. Oh Africa, nataka to know. Oh Africa, God's power in creation is shown. I'm looking at the beautiful skies and the green on the hills. I love Africa. I'm looking at the beautiful skies and the green on the hills. I love Africa. Oh Africa, I call you home. Oh Africa, I love you more. Oh Africa, that's the one to know. Oh Africa, God's power in creation is shown. I'm looking at the The sun will rise from the east and set to the west on a beautiful African day. The beauty in the river as the water flows, and I can't do nothing but swim. It's amazing how nature falls in sync. I see the reason why he said it was good. Amazing creation. As the mother and daughter fetch water from the stream, they sing beautiful songs of peace and some ululation. The men gather under shades of beautiful trees, and peaceful reasoning is all I see. Africa, oh Africa, my motherland. Africa, oh Africa, this is where I come from. Africa, oh Africa, my motherland. Africa, oh Africa, this is where I come from. Oh Africa, I call you home. Oh Africa, I love you more. Oh Africa, nataka watu more. Oh Africa, those our creation is shown. I'm looking at the beautiful skies and the green on the hills. I love Africa. I'm looking at the beautiful skies and the green on the hills. I love Africa. Oh Africa, I call you home. Oh Africa, I love you more. Oh Africa, nataka to know. Oh Africa, God's power in creation is shown. I'm looking at the beautiful skies and the green on the hills. I love Africa. I'm looking at the beautiful skies and the green on the hills. I love Africa. Africa, oh Africa, my motherland. Africa, oh Africa, this is where I come from. Africa, oh Africa, my motherland. Africa, oh Africa, this is where I come from. The sun will rise from the east and set to the west on a beautiful African day. The beauty in the river as the water flows, and I can't do nothing but swim. It's amazing how nature falls in sync. I see the reason why he said it was good. Amazing creation. As the mother and daughter fetch water from the stream, they sing beautiful songs of peace and some ululation. The men gather under shades of beautiful trees, and peaceful reasoning is all I see. Africa, oh Africa, my motherland. Africa, oh Africa, this is where I come from. Africa, oh Africa, my motherland. Africa, oh Africa, this is where I come from. Oh Africa, I call you home. Oh Africa, I love you more. Oh Africa, nataka to know. Oh Africa, God's power and creation is shown. I'm looking at the beautiful skies and the green on the hills. I love Africa. I'm looking at the beautiful skies and the green on the hills. I love Africa. Oh Africa, I call you home. Oh Africa, I love you more. Oh Africa, nataka to know. Oh Africa, God's power in creation is shown. I'm looking at the beautiful skies and the green on the hills. I love Africa. The beautiful skies and the green on the hills. I love Africa. Africa, oh Africa, my motherland. Africa, oh Africa, this is where I come from. Africa, oh Africa, my motherland. Africa, oh Africa, this is where I come from. The sun will rise from the east and set to the west on a beautiful African day. The beauty in the river as the water flows, and I can't do nothing but swim. It's amazing how nature falls in sync. I see the reason why he said it was good. Amazing creation. As the mother and daughter fetch water from the stream, they sing beautiful songs of peace and some ululation. The men gather under shades of beautiful trees, and peaceful reasoning is all I see. Africa, oh Africa, my motherland. Africa, oh Africa, this is where I come from. Africa, oh Africa, my motherland. Africa, oh Africa, This is where I come from. Oh, Africa, I call you home. Oh, Africa, I love you more. Oh, Africa, nachojikwa tuno. Oh, Africa, God's power in creation is shown. I'm looking at the beautiful skies and the green on the hills. I love Africa. I'm looking at the beautiful skies and the green on the hills. I love Africa. Oh, Africa, I call you home. Oh, Africa, I love you more. Oh, Africa, nachojikwa tuno. Oh, Africa, God's power in creation is shown. I'm looking at the beautiful skies and the green on the hills. I love Africa. I'm looking at the beautiful skies and the green on the hills. I love Africa. Africa, oh Africa, my motherland. Africa, oh Africa, this is where I come from. Africa, oh Africa, my motherland. Africa, oh Africa, this is where I come from. La oui. The sun will rise from the east and set to the west on a beautiful African day. The beauty in the river as the water flows, and I can't do nothing but swim. It's amazing how nature falls in sync. I see the reason why he said it was good. Amazing creation. As the mother and daughter fetch water from the stream, they sing beautiful songs of peace and some ululation. The men gather under shades of beautiful trees, and peaceful reasoning is all I see. Africa, oh Africa, my motherland. Africa, oh Africa, this is where I come from. Africa, oh Africa, my motherland. Africa, oh Africa, this is where I come from. Oh Africa, I call you home. Oh Africa, I love you more. Oh Africa, nachojikwa tuno. Oh Africa, God's power in creation is shown. I'm looking at the beautiful skies and the green on Africa, oh Africa, this is where I come from. Africa, oh Africa, my motherland. Africa, oh Africa, this is where I